Module 3. Intercultural Communication Tools in Public Sectors.
Every day, we go about our lives communicating with others in different ways. Every approach taken with every individual has a meaning behind it, and as humans, we excel in trying to communicate the message we want to transmit. This is done through verbal, paraverbal, and non-verbal communication. In this module, the aim is to equip the public service provider with key communication skills when working with third country national clients. We'll also be demonstrating the appropriate ethos when working alongside interpreters in order to carry out clear and effective communication.
While verbal communication clearly refers to speech, paraverbal communication concerns the tonality, pitch, and speed we apply to the way we speak. This is more often than not accompanied by non-verbal communication, which concerns body language, gestures, and also facial expressions. However, we may sometimes encounter barriers which hinder our success in delivering clear information. This may have something to do with the misuse of the three forms of communication, where words, speech patterns, and body language are not used appropriately or are misinterpreted. This often leads to unsuccessful negotiations and a failure to deliver quality service in the workplace. We will be aiding you in becoming a star speaker. Not only will you become a more approachable service provider with these given skills, but you'll also learn how to handle any given situation in the most professional manner, tackle the task at hand in an efficient and explicable manner with the client, take appropriate action in solving problems and dealing with difficult scenarios, achieve effective results and win the trust of your satisfied clients. The first step in achieving star status is to develop your listening skills. We frequently underestimate the importance of listening, and when in conversation, we often forget to listen because we're so concerned with what we have to say once that person finishes speaking. We forget the difference between hearing and listening. Before working on the following skills, we must first ensure that we are genuinely taking in what our client has to say. It is only then that we may effectively apply our listening techniques. In order to help your client through his or her queries, you must focus on taking in all the information he or she is giving. Don't think about what you're going to say next. Allow the client to feed you information and then answer or advise accordingly. This is called active listening, and a client can instantly sense when your listening skills are actively switched on. We can now work on heightening our listening skills. The first step towards being a professional listener when addressing third country nationals is to make them feel that they are within a safe and friendly environment. People can instantly sense others' sentiments, and the client wants to feel that he or she will be communicating with someone who's committed to cooperate. By putting aside our prejudices and emotions, we are putting on a neutral and cooperative hat which puts the client at ease. An integral part of listening is physically showing your client that you're committed to the task at hand. By using the right body language, you'll be encouraging your client to give you more information about his or her problem. Crossed arms and leaning far back on your chair gives the impression that you're putting yourself above your client and that you intend on being dominant and uncooperative. Leaning forward and placing your hands in front of you shows that you are open to what your client has to say. Tilting your head and nodding also confirms that you are taking in what he's saying. Good listening skills go hand in hand with effective question skills. Asking the right questions helps you get the right information and reassures the client that you know what you're talking about. Open questions such as, "Could you tell me more about the school your children are attending?" keep the conversation flowing with the right balance of verbal communication. The client mustn't feel that your discussion is an interrogation. "What are you doing here? Who are you with? Don't you know that we can't help you with this?" You must always remember that a softer tone in your voice and allowing the client the right to be uninformed will help you get things done in a more helpful manner. Are you in Malta with any family members? Are you here for employment purposes? I'm afraid we are not the right department to inform you about this. However, I can write down the contact details of the responsible office. I'll just check with my colleague. Remember that while you may have to ask direct questions such as the ones we've just demonstrated, the paraverbal and non-verbal factors of your speech are equally important in retrieving information from your client. A smile with eye contact when asking such probing questions will remind the client that you mean well. Slightly rewording your question will make you sound more approachable and sensitive as an individual. Service providers must also be ready for the likely possibility of encountering third country nationals who cannot speak English and are limited to just yes or no. In such cases, your paraverbal and non-verbal communication skills must be on high alert. Situations with extreme language barriers can be very uncomfortable, especially for the client who has serious problems to solve. Imagine that you are faced with a client who doesn't speak English and is carrying an important document containing some very private and confidential information. The client cannot read in English and is concerned for his privacy and does not wish for certain details to be divulged. This consequently adds another barrier to your scenario. As you can see, the client can only give very little information due to the language barrier, and he wishes to keep his information private and confidential. Here is a proposed method of handling such a situation. An essential part in the work of service providing for third country nationals is the role of interpreters. They are essential in resolving barriers such as the one just presented, and they must work in harmony with the service provider to ensure a neutral, respectful, and professional exchange with the client. These are some vital tips when working with an interpreter. Make sure that you always address the client when speaking in English. Eye contact and a friendly disposition can be understood by any nationality. The interpreter must be seated next to the client, yet slightly behind him or her. This gives emphasis to the message being interpreted and allows the client to better engage with the service provider without any interference. The interpreter must exactly interpret what is being said, particularly the addressing of the two parties in the first person. No information given should be left uninterpreted. At the same time, the interpreter should not give his or her own opinions or own interpretation of the message. The interpretation should be exact. Side conversations between the interpreter and the client should be avoided. In all cases, they must be interpreted for each party's benefit. This ensures trust and mutual ground for everyone. Our communication skills should be universal. They are to be applied to any individual, whether local or a third country national. It is not a question of being charitable or preferential towards any particular nationality. It is a question of providing a shared quality service which reflects the professionalism of your sector. Good communication promotes the philosophy of entitlement. It supports the fact that every individual is entitled to an easy transmission into a new society through the welcoming help of its service providers. This project is part financed by the European Union, European Fund for the Integration of Third Country Nationals.